Stephen Mnuchin floated around the idea of the corporate tax rate delayed. Maria Bartiromo comments that you saw only here on Fox Business, nowhere else. We got to show that, so roll tape.
On the campaign, the president wanted to have a 15% rate. We started a 15% rate. The president got comfortable that 20% was the right balance of what we could afford and an incentive, but we're sticking with the 20%. That's critical.
Okay, the 20% rate is critical even if it's a year later.
Again, we'd rather it sooner, but we'll work with the House and Senate on the rollout of that.
Joining me now, Fox News contributor Deroy Murdock, the National Review contributing editor, also Elizabeth Harrington, Washington Free Beacon staff writer, and Hugo Gurdon, Washington Examiner's editorial director. Hugo, let me start with you. That 20% rate being pushed out spooked the market, and then, of course, there are a whole lot of other elements that came through as the day went on, including 7 tax brackets. I'm not sure what kind of a postcard we're going to fit those on. Nevertheless, Wall Street, I think, speaking for all of America with its confusion and worry.
Yeah, I think that there's plenty of reason to be confused and some to be worried. There's obviously very substantial differences between the House and the Senate, and they're going to have to reconcile those differences. But I think the thing that I would think that the White House is most concerned about is just pushing out the corporate tax rate reduction for a year or even possibly more than that, because the principal reason why this tax reform has been pressed is about America's inability to compete against much lower tax jurisdictions, sometimes having corporate taxes nearly half what we have. And the point of this is a jobs bill to get industry, to get the economy moving and create jobs. So I think the corporate tax rate is the thing that will be the real sticking point here.
I think that's right, too, Deroy. President Trump always talks about that, always compares it to the rest of the world. Let's not forget, he started with a 15% corporate tax rate. So this is going to be a real difficult sticking block. And also the notion is that a lot of people, their taxes are going to go up, bottom line.
Yeah, look, we've got the goalposts moving from 15 to 20, now 20, but maybe with a year delay. A delayed corporate tax cut is nothing other than a recipe for recession. If I have the option of opening up a factory in 2018 at 35% or waiting until 2019 at 20%, I'm going to put it off for a year, which means I'm not hiring next year, I'm not building, I'm not buying materials. That is a recipe for recession in 2018, which will be a disaster economically and politically for the Republicans. That corporate tax has to come now, ideally retroactively, not a year from now.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone from dreams of retroactivity to now being pushed out. Elizabeth,
unbelievable.
You know, we talk about the multiplier effect. It's $100 billion they saved with this. But when you talk about corporations and higher wages and employment and investment, it really is a lot more than that with respect to Main Street. Also, the 7 tax brackets from the Senate. You know, you've got the Republican Party fighting itself. It's like a war against itself here. How does it all play out, particularly when they've given themselves such a short timeline?
Right. I mean, what else is new with Republicans? You've seen this over and over again with health care. You thought they had it, and of course they did not. And this was supposed to be a much easier lift for them with tax reform. But again, this is a negotiating process. We always knew a Senate bill was coming, and it was
I know, but you know what it is,
Elizabeth?
They're negotiating with themselves, right? I mean, that's, right. They keep talking about Democrats. First of all, if you get rid of SALT, state and local tax deductions, 0 Democrats are coming on board. Bottom line, I doubt any would come on board no matter what, even if Chuck Schumer wrote the bill himself. But that being said, why are they negotiating so hard amongst themselves?
You know, that's a perfect question. They really, honestly, don't know really how to govern in a majority. We've seen them do this time and time again. And honestly, they need to get their act together, especially on the corporate rate of what we were talking about. Exactly what the point was. If you push that back for another year, the economy's not going to boom, and they need the economy to boom if they want to salvage the midterms in 2018.
That was the centerpiece of the plan.
If I could just jump in here, I think that the Republicans have got to get this done because they've been promising it and they haven't achieved anything yet. But they also have to get it done because they have to have the economy going well by the time the midterms come along. And this was something that Paul Ryan was acknowledging yesterday at a Washington Examiner event, where we asked him, how does the tax bill, how do your thoughts about the tax bill change in the light of the elections on Tuesday, where the Republicans got hammered? And one of the points that he made is it means it's much more urgent now. It's much more pressing to get the economy going so that at least you're lifting all boats by the time people go to the polls.
Right. Deroy?
Well, look, one thing I find amazing is that the Republicans essentially are engaging in class warfare, you know, having this bubble tax at 45.6% and so on. It's the wrong thing to do, number one. Number two, if this were the price to gain Democrat votes, that'd be one thing. What's happening is they're engaging in left-wing class warfare, and yet the Democrats attack them anyway.
But do you
gaining absolutely nothing for banning their own
is
principles.
that there are going to be 3 or 4 Republican senators that won't back this for reasons that have nothing to do with economics or politics? So they have to figure out a way to seduce some of these Democrats, particularly those in red states. Is it that much forward thinking, or is this just incompetence?
I think it's incompetence. Look, if they said, all right, look, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and that's going to get us Claire McCaskill and Senator Manchin, that'd be one thing. But I see them, again, engaging in class warfare, saying, okay, we're going to stick it to the rich and all this sort of stuff. And I don't see Democrats moving over towards them. And what you're doing is alienating supply-siders, and people believe in reducing taxes. It's
Elizabeth, we saw this whole turf war, too, the finger-pointing between House Republicans and Senate Republicans. And you know, earlier in the week, I forgot which guest, but it was a Republican from the House saying, it's our job to write this bill. It's our, you know, in other words, sort of saying, Senate, back off, let us get the job done. And here we are, the Senate rolling out their plan as the House is still marking up theirs.
Right. It really undercuts the House that hasn't even passed their bill yet. And if people, you're going to have a lot of moderate Republicans worried about the standard state and local deduction when the Senate completely gets rid of it. I mean, why would they vote for their own bill that they compromised on already if the Senate is just going to throw it out, the compromise vote they did? But I think that point is exactly right. The Democrats are going to hammer Republicans no matter what they put out there. So they should have gone bigger and bolder.
That's right.
They should have lowered the rates for everybody. I mean, we've been hearing for years that we need trickle-down economics, right? It's not the rich. Everybody should have a tax cut, but you know, they've, just like you said, it's class warfare, and they've fallen into that line of talking points.
And also,
it's with absolutely no political.
It's not going to work, guys, if they don't allow the folks with the money to spend that money, to invest that money. It's just simply not going to work. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you all very, very much.